So glad to be here. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, all of the LTN crew, for making this possible. It's a joy. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon to all of you around the world. I'm going to try to share my screen to start this quick overview of what we're calling all kinds of tactics in this moment. Let's see if this is working. I guess you can all see it. Yeah. Excellent. So very quickly, I'm going to just talk really quickly about Beautiful Trouble and my work here. We are a group of people that are basically dedicated to making revolution irresistible. That's what we say. And we have a whole suite of tools that are available for people's use. A lot of them are, most of them are online for free. Some of them are available affordably, books and things like that. We even have a strategic card deck that I'll talk a little bit about, chat boxes, all kinds of things online to help you and support you in your creative and strategic thinking. Just wanted to start there to frame it. No, it won't let me go. Okay. Anyways, here we go. One of the things I wanted to mention is that at Beautiful Trouble, like with LCN, we start where people's experiences are. We start with the stories that people have to tell around what their work is, how they've tried to make change and what they've done. But we don't just stop there. We tease out from the stories, the tactics, the theories, the principles that help people identify what worked and what didn't work, what was effective. And from that, people can take this information and figure out if it's appropriate to use in their own context. Really critical to us that people contextualize the work that they're doing. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to go very quickly through a lot of different examples to get us thinking about what is possible in this moment and how do we respond in this time of pandemic, when many of us are saying, we don't want to go back to normal. Normal wasn't working to begin with. And the strategic frame about the veil being pulled off of our systems that are not functioning at all for people, broadly speaking, across the world. So some of the principles and theories that we have found that have made work very effective now, and as well as before the COVID virus, was to take leadership from the most impacted, right? And in this case, where there's lots of kinds of impacted peoples that you could focus on. I'm actually not going to go into all of the work that we've done and all the work that's going on around mutual aid and having basic needs met. That's not quite true. I'm going to mention one thing, but we're going to start right now with first responders and people who've experienced the crisis or a crisis like this before. So on the left, you'll see a message from Spanish firefighters to stay home. And on the right, the bottom right, just a couple days ago in Arizona, in the United States, nurses had to stand up as frontline workers to tell people to stay home while people were advocating for opening up the system and not locking down, not shutting down the system to stop the infections. In the top right, you'll see a story about one of our compatriots in the UK who, with a group of folks who have been fighting HIV and AIDS for years in the queer community, realizing very quickly that isolation would be a really big problem. And they organized what they called maybe the first global cabaret to actually connect people and help people personally make it through this time, based on their experience and how difficult it was being isolated in the early days of the AIDS epidemic. One really important thing is that we want to deliver what people need. While I talked a minute about mutual aid, this is a picture from a housing takeover in Los Angeles in the United States. One of the basic principles about serving people is that you have to meet them where they're at and give them and help them get what they need to survive. And providing a direct service is one way to do it. In this moment, not only is it very persuasive and powerful and needed, it also allows you to build communication lines and hopefully trust that will enable you to build towards other kinds of social action and civic engagement. It's famously said that change happens at the speed of trust. This moment, because of the dire situation that we're in and the ability for those of us who can to support each other in getting healthcare, getting housing, getting food, meeting basic needs, there's a great ability to build those lines of communication and then trust quicker even than normal. I'm going to share something that happened, when was this? Last week we did this. These are body bags, not real fake body bags that were put at the Trump Hotel in Washington, D.C. The big issue here is that one of the first things as activists that we often have to do is make the invisible visible, make the problem visible to people who are trying to ignore it. And we know that the number of deaths in the United States and the lack of responsibility of the administration for getting healthcare workers, personal protective equipment, masks and such is a very big problem here and around the world, but particularly in the United States, where I'm talking to you from. Another way to make the invisible visible that many people, and actually I'll go back and said, these activities have to be done safely. We are not asking the broad community to participate in in-person activities. And when we do in-person activities, we follow the social distancing, or what I call the social solidarity and the physical distancing rules. We try to stay 6 feet apart and wear masks and gloves. And we encourage vulnerable communities not to participate in person, but online. So we always have several components. This picture of another way to make the invisible visible is by using projections. The one on the right is from the UK. You might have seen these incredibly moving and powerful first-person testimonies from the National Health Service employees. The one on the left is a COVID memorial projecting images of those people we've lost to this disease, again, to make it clear what's happening. And of course, this moment is ripe for online work. These are screenshots of a spoof Spring World Bank and IMF, International Monetary Fund meeting site that called on the International Monetary Fund to forgive all debts for nations that needed that support. The screenshot in the middle is an internal WhatsApp screenshot from civil society organizations chatting with IMF officials, and you'll notice that they were quite flustered by this prank. It was pretty obvious from the beginning that if we were pranking them, but you can see the last line, which I adore, is, "I hope the IMF gets inspired by it." This is a brilliant advocacy campaign tool. And so we really are encouraging people to be creative online. You can do real disruptive work. I didn't put it in here, but we saw Zoom bombing for good that was done the other night from the UK, when a landlord who was trying to evict people was throwing a party on the Zoom, and people Zoom bombed that for good, calling out the landlord. So there's some very assertive tactics can be used, and effective tactics can be used online. You may have also seen these car rallies or motorcades or caravans being done all over the world. I've seen them. These are images from New Jersey in the United States, one of the earliest caravans surrounding a detention center. We've used them both for detention centers and releases, and calling on jails to let their populations out because they're so vulnerable to this disease. And of course, there are lots of just regular, ordinary things that people have done, only in slightly different ways. So hanging a banner off your roof, it can be done pretty individually. Hanging, and you can see that the other folks are 6 feet apart and are using masks and gloves and hazmat suits actually to do this safely. Just yesterday morning, here in the United States, in front of Jeff Bezos, probably the richest man in the world, who's already made, I don't know, was it $20 billion in this last month or two of the coronavirus? He's the owner of Amazon and Whole Foods. We left him quite a big message on the street in front of his house. Water-based paint, everybody staying as distanced apart, and also masked up, of course. And unfortunately, washed away already. We also have seen an incredible outpouring of worker solidarity and worker support. We're coming up on May Day, a traditional activist day for workers to gather and speak their demands. In the top, we see sanitation workers. We see nurses on the right side. We see Amazon workers and Whole Food groceries workers who have all gone out on strike or have walked off the job or demanded in some way that they be considered and taken care of as essential workers. They are being considered essential workers, but they're not necessarily getting the tools that they need to do their job safely. The little GE symbol in the middle, I don't know if people heard this story, but in the United States, our administration is not asking the agencies, corporations to produce needed equipment, although they have the authority to do it. General Electric workers actually walked out demanding that they be able to turn their automobile factories into producing personal protective equipment,
Nadine,
ventilators.
Just a kind notification that the time is up, so maybe you can slowly try to wrap up. Thanks a lot.
Wow, my time wasn't up. But anyways, here we go. I'll go really quick. So just another thing, simple rules can have grand results. And I think we're going to have Nadia talk a little bit about that. This was an online poster experiment, an online event. Another couple of artistic things that were done, which were collected images. People made these things in their homes, and then one artist put them all together. Solidarity with the wet'suwet'en and pandemic importance. And I'll just refer people to another really fascinating way to engage people as an educational tool of flattening the climate curve.org. You can take a look at that one. That's another really encouraging way to get information out there. Again, these are really quick images. This one happens to be in Norway, talking about the impact on migrants. And this one's from the United States. You can see another simple rules or small objects and ways of participating can have grand results. This one happens to be from Denmark that had a big action and a mobilization plan to do in person, but instead they turned it to individual banners all around the city. It was incredibly powerful and beautiful. And of course, I was gonna, this will be the last one, I believe, to share a story about what happened in Uganda when corruption and the regime forced everyone coming into the city into quarantine that they would have to pay for themselves, which was out of most people's control, into a particular hotels that were making money off of it. So local folks went and tried to deliver water and snacks to people who couldn't even afford to eat. That's the right hand pictures. And they therefore shamed the government into fixing the situation and handling it much better for the people who were unfairly quarantined. And again, really thank you for being here. Looking forward to the questions. There's a lot of resources online, and looking forward to